Welcome to Wildlife Outdoors with your host, Russell and Jose. If you have a passion for conservation of the outdoors, or you're enjoying a calming hike in the mountains, an exhilarating kayak trip on the river, feeling a fish on the end of your line, cooking on an open flame in a primitive campsite, or stalking big game, just waiting for the perfect shot, you're in the right place. So put on your boots and polarized sunglasses and come along for the ride.
Welcome back to the podcast, guys. It's Jose and Russell here with Wildlife Outdoors, and today we are actually joined by a guest on the show that was listening to us before we actually knew him. So here it is. His name is Fred Truax. You want to tell us a little about yourself, Fred?
Hey, I'm Fred Truax. I'm from Upstate New York, from the Syracuse area. Big bass angler. Big buck hunter, but not a big buck shooter. I live up in all the clear water of the north, just south of Lake Ontario, kind of in that central New York area, where we celebrate all four seasons, and we have hot summers, really cold, snowy winters, so we kind of get it all, and kind of in the state. Kind of have everything here. We have mountains, we have valleys, we have really great water, we have muddy water, and kind of everything in between. It's a good little spot. Just stay away from the politics here.
Right, you can say that about anywhere nowadays, though. For real. So I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about muddy waters up north. So tell us a little about that. Is it runoff or?
Well, like your mountain runoff, that's crystal clear. That's probably cleaner than the water you're drinking in your water bottle right now. Mm-hmm. But we have like your basic lowland rivers and stuff that are flowing in and out of ponds and out of swamps and stuff. And then obviously your rain just coming down, like ditch lines and whatnot. So
I see.
Muddy water. No, we're not, in Arkansas and Georgia and fishing in straight mud, but right. We have river visibility of, 2-3 feet sometimes.
Nice. I see.
But primarily, fishing in the Finger Lakes for the most part, it's usually pretty gin clear. Lake Ontario is pretty clear. St. Lawrence is pretty clear. But following, storm patterns and rains and stuff, obviously it'll muddy up.
I see. That makes sense. So I've never been to any of the Great Lakes up there. So the only thing that I really think about when I think about Great Lakes is cold, windy, and sturgeon.
100% right.
So what else? I know that you've sent me some pictures of some like lake browns that you've caught and stuff like that. What else do you catch on the lakes?
So a lot of people up here chase muskie, like muskellunge. Mm-hmm. That's pretty common. Northern pike, obviously. Smallmouth. If you're into bass, this is like the smallmouth capital, if you will, other than like St. Clair and whatnot. But your Great Lakes region. And just a lot of it is it's so different than anything else. Like you watch, like, the furthest south that I've ever fished was like Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. We fished the northern end of that. And even that working with tidal water was so different than like what I'm used to. 'Cause we'll go out in a lake and I'll drop shot onto smallmouth in 45, 60 feet of water sometimes.
Really?
And then tomorrow morning, they're pulled up into 15 feet.
That's
they're
crazy.
They move around and they're incredible. Like Oneida Lake, sometimes you'll see like the Bassmaster Elite Series will go there. Those boys will find them on a shoal. Mm-hmm. And side note, if you ever get the chance to look at Oneida Lake at like the Navionics map of that, there's so many shoals in that lake. It's incredible. But you'll watch the guys, and if you can catch a picture of their graph or something, you'll see that they're throwing drop shots or Carolina rigs or cranking in 15, 16 feet of water. And then it'll flip to the next person and he's drop shotting on 45 feet of water trying to catch the similar smallmouth. And they'll travel so much. And they tournament day, it seems like they weren't where they were during practice.
Really?
They move around so much up here.
That's crazy. So we have smallmouth here in Arkansas, and they're typically in the river systems, and they'll act pretty much like a trout. So they'll stay close to the ripple, and if you find a little pocket, little eddy on the outside of a ripple, they're typically going to be on the ripple side of that. and they're always there. And that's just where they are. Sometimes they'll go deeper, we'll have some deeper pockets and, they'll hole up in there, but majority of the times they're just close to the ripple. And so it's just different to think about how smallmouth will travel so much on lakes. But then again, I don't think I've ever caught a smallmouth on a lake before. So it's always been river smallmouth.
Yeah. I was just going to say I don't want to say a lot of difference. Obviously it's the same fish, but they're sitting in a lake there's no current. So they're holding to cover like grasses, they're holding to rocks, they're holding to hard bottom. And when the water is exceptionally clear, that's when you see those anglers have like the floggers where they're hanging off the side of their boat, looking down what looks like a road cone. That's our water is so clear, instead of a fish finder, you can physically place that. It's either glass or plastic shield on it. And you can look down and see 30, 40 feet underneath you and see little black dots swimming around this rock. And there's my smallmouth.
That's freaking crazy.
So yeah, if you watch a lot of the elites, you'll see they'll have, it looks, sometimes they'll tape it. They'll tape them up with like black electrical tape to try to hide it. Or they'll be like fluorescent orange. They look like highway cones, and they just hold them down and they're looking in the water. And you'll see they'll be looking down and they'll have a drop shot rod in their other hand, and they'll watch the bite, set the hook, throw
That's
the flogger in the boat,
crazy.
Reel it in.
That's wild.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's something that I would like to try, though.
It's incredible. It's such a weird way to fish. And now obviously with your electronics are so far advanced on bass boats now, you have like forward facing sonar, live sonar, 360 imaging, mega imaging, side scan. It's pretty hard to hide in those waters now.
Right. I was watching Jon B's latest video that he made up there. I want to say it was Maine, or no, he was in Canada. I don't remember what state
I saw
he was in.
the sturgeon.
Yeah, he caught the sturgeon and stuff. But when he was
picture.
catching the freaking bass, the smallmouth bass out there, he was catching some chunky smallmouth bass. And he found this one spot by this bridge that they were just, piled in there. So what's a big smallmouth bass for your region?
I would say like St. Lawrence River, 6.5, 7 pounds.
No shit.
I'd
probably have a heart attack if I caught a 6 or 7
Yeah,
pound
I
smallmouth.
probably would too. I think my PB smallmouth's got to be around 5 pounds from the St. Lawrence.
That's a stud fish, though.
They're footballs. They're legitimate footballs.
That's awesome.
If you I know I keep bringing up the elites, but if you watch their St. Lawrence, they just broke the single day record of smallmouth, and it was like 30. Don't quote me. I think it was 37 pounds.
Wow.
Holy hell. That's freaking crazy.
What's been your best day?
Yeah, so that's my best day. Probably 24, maybe.
That's pretty dang solid, though, man.
That's really good.
Sitting or averaging around the 5 pound mark.
That's freaking
that was
nuts.
a team event. I've never fished it solo. It was a team event.
Do you do tourneys?
Yeah, I do a lot of tourneys.
Nice, man. How'd you get into that?
So it's actually funny. My development into fishing is, I don't want to say it's new anymore, but I got deep into it in like 2017, 2018. My uncle took me fishing. We had a bomb day out on the waters. You catch one of those days, you just catch everything. You catch every fish in the lake. We're catching smallmouth, largemouth. We're catching northern pikes, pickerel, perch, anything. Every cast is a fish kind of thing. I'm like, wow, this is pretty fun. So, we fished a whole bunch that summer, and it just, to me, it just like clicked. I was in the books on YouTube, watching the Guggen Squad before they were the Guggen Squad, trying to learn everything that there is to learn about bass fishing. That was my target, was bass fishing. And I'm eating it up, and I'm talking to people, and I'm making friends. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm discovering companies, and you're chatting with people from the companies that are trying to sell you products. And this is the best thing. And this is a game changer. And this is the, gonna destroy the way that you've ever caught a fish kind of thing. And you go to Gander Mountain or Dick's Sporting Goods, and you're buying all these hype lures just to say you own them. And I just got so fully involved with it that my one buddy, Chris, he approached me and he goes, have you ever thought about fishing like derbies on the river? I'm like, no way, dude. There's no way I can catch, 5 bass on a time limit. And I I got talking with my uncle, and we kind of decided to go do one, and we showed up and, got your ass kicked, and but it was fun. It was fun. We lost, but it was fun. And we did that a few times, and then I got talking to him. I'm like, well, these pros, if you watch TV, if you don't compare yourself to a pro, but if you're watching it, you're like, well, they have a couple days of practice. They can go out. They pre-fish. You find the fish before you go. Mm-hmm. So it was on the Oswego River up here was our big tournament, if you will. And we found this little cut. It's a creek that flows into the river. It's called Ox Creek. And we had gone out 2 nights before, and where that river, or where the creek flows into the river, is this huge grass mat. It's like an acre grass mat, and it's all just slop and junk. But it's not. It doesn't touch bottom. It just sits there and kind of floats. Mm-hmm. There is seaweed there that kind of holds it in place, and we're throwing frogs on it. We're punching it, and whatnot, and we're hammering largemouth. So we're like, okay. So we tried it again the next day. Now it's like Wednesday night. We try it. They're still there. So we're like, well, we have a good chance that they're probably still there, and hopefully we didn't sore lip them. So we show up Thursday, and absolutely we caught like around 20 pounds, and second place was like 11.
Wow, dude.
And we show up with like a bag of bass, and this is before we didn't have weigh bags. We didn't have anything. We're reaching in the live well and just carrying 2 largemouth bass at a time to their weigh station, like those poor fish. And so like we crushed it, and we're looking at each other like, this is happening. Like we just did that together. Like we just caught, like, it was like a 5.71 lunker. And it was like it was a day. It was a day to be on the water. And
that's freaking awesome.
It was super cool to do that. And then since then, that same buddy Chris that told me to try tournaments, he invited me to try one out of Fairhaven. It's called Little Sodas Bay. It's just off of Lake Ontario. He and I went and fished it, and I don't think we did very well, but it was like my first glimpse at sitting in the middle of a lake. We went into Lake Ontario, throwing this little stupid worm with a weight underneath it into 40 feet of water, and somehow Chris is catching fish, and I cannot figure it out. So he's using like 6-pound test with a little tiny drop shot, like a number 1 hook, with a 6-inch robo worm on it and a 1/2-ounce drop shot weight. Uh-huh. I'm throwing 65-pound braid with a 3/0 hook with a Senko on it and not catching a damn thing. And I'm so confused. I'm like, I don't get it, but I own 1 rod. This is what I got. I had 1 rod for worms and 1 rod for a frog. Mm-hmm. And you're not throwing a frog in 40 feet of water.
Right.
So, but it was a learning experience. And then all of a sudden it was that day where I realized, you know what I need? 47 rods. That'll solve the problem. If I just add another 25 rods. So that was where the collection started growing. And then from there, I remember I had just a little cheap Plano, like 3600 tackle box. That was where all my stuff was. I had like a bag of Senkos that I would carry in my pocket, and then a couple random hooks and a couple random, mostly Fire Tiger painted lures. And because they're bright and they look cool, they sell, they catch the angler, not the fish.
Exactly.
So Chris and I took off, and at the time he just bought like a pretty new nitro bass boat. It was a Z18. It never clicked up in the thick skull of mine of how fast these boats are. And we take off on the river. It's like 6:30 in the morning. The river is perfect glass. We take off, and I'm looking over. He's got like a Lowrance fish finder, 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, 40, 50. We're reaching 60. The next thing I know is I'm like looking up, and there's just glitter all around me because my tackle box just left the under part of my foot and just exploded. My little Plano, wind caught it, and it picked up, it hit something, and boom!
Oh no!
Lures and shiners, like all this crap everywhere. I had a pocket knife in there, and I look at Chris, and he's like, "What's your plan? You're not going to get it." I'm like, "Oh!" So I have to fish out of his stuff that day. That was on the same river where we had won.
I see.
And it was kind of after then where I'm like, how do I get into this, but like kind of optimize myself?
Mm-hmm.
How do I like, what is bass fishing? And he says, well, if you're really considering this, you should join this club. It's called the Good Old Boys. It's a New York Bass Nation affiliate, and it's an actual club. What you do every week is I would go as a non-boater. You bring all your own lures. You're paired with a boater.
Mm-hmm.
You help them out with anything they need on the boat. They try to put you on fish. Obviously, they want to put themselves on fish. So, but you're just a co-boater. You're helping them net fish, any emergencies. Like I've helped guys, pull hooks out of their hand and, first aid on the boat and stuff. And, you help them launch their boat with the truck, back up a trailer, do that. And that's kind of how I got into that. And then I just took it honestly for the level that I was fishing for. If I would win a tournament, it's paying me like $40.
Yeah.
Like it would pay my gas to get to the boat launch and my gas that I would try to pitch to the boater for using his boat. And maybe I'll have enough to swing into like McDonald's on the way home kind of thing. So you're not making money doing that really. Which I didn't care. I was there for fun. I've never really done this to try to break a profit. Anything that I make is paying off the debt that I've incurred, basically.
Right.
So I took it too seriously. And I still take it very seriously, but I went out with the Good Old Boys and I don't want to sound, I guess I don't know how to word it, but essentially did very well. I did pretty good. Mm-hmm. Went out my very first tournament. I lost a fish that I would have won the whole tournament with and might have had lunker. It was on Cayuga Lake. And then the very first, that was just a paper tournament. So up north, our season doesn't open until the third Saturday in June.
I see.
So anything before then is usually like their spawn time. So we can do what they call paper tournaments. You catch a bass, you can take it out of the water, and you and your boater, because you're against each other, the other person weighs it. You take a weight on a scale and then you release it. So it's catch and release.
I see.
I probably had on, it was like a pre-spawn, probably 5 or 6 pound largemouth. It was massive, northern Cayuga Lake, and it shook the hook as we were trying to net it.
Man.
And that would have been a game changer right there. So I think I got like second or third place with like 7 pounds or something on the non-boater side.
Yeah.
And then our very first points tournament was the Oswego River, which is my home water. I went out there, I caught like 18.5 pounds and I won the whole event as a non-boater.
Nice.
In the same swing, while I'm doing this Good Old Boys, I'm also into New York kayak bass fishing. Mm-hmm. So I'm out on a kayak a lot as well, fishing a lot of the smaller Finger Lakes and smaller, tributaries and bodies of water and such. So I'm on the water like 6 days a week. My wife loved every second of it. But I was out a lot. And I was at the time I was a full-time mechanic. That was when I sent you that picture of that northern pike I caught. I looked like crap. So I would like get out of work and where I worked was along the Seneca River, and I would just get out of work and just go fish there. And I would be like, well, Jon B showed this is how you flip a creature bait. And Alex Perrick says, this is how you're supposed to throw a crankbait. And I'd go out and I'd try it. And I would bring one lure with me. And this is how you flip a jig. This is how you do this. And I would do that. That'd be the only thing that I'd bring. And I progressively developed those skills. And then when to use them, how to use them, where to use them. And I was able to target fish. So that first season, using all of this like sponge of knowledge that I just got obsessed with learning everything I could about bass. I ended up winning Angler of the Year on the co-boater side. I got invited to the CTC, which is the Club Team Championship, which is your highest 6 in points for the season. You go to compete with your team against the whole state of New York for all the other bass clubs.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That was on the St. Lawrence. I think we got like 3rd or 4th place. So that was an experience. And then I went down that same year. Me and Chris went down to the Chesapeake and fished a FLW BFL. I don't know where I placed. I don't even think I placed down there like 60 something, but that's what it was. So bass is kind of my game, which is, you know, that's my forte.
I would say. And I think
I've been talking to you on the side about fly fishing, and I think that's kind of my break against bass. But like, I show up to a creek and I'm like, I don't know, there's a tree laying there. I bet there's something pulled up underneath that. I'm like, let me go grab my bait caster out of the truck.
Right. That's freaking awesome, though. So you said that, the New York KBF is that just a chapter of the larger KBF, or is it a completely different thing?
Yep. So in 2018, I fished with NYKBF. That's it's an affiliate with the KBF. It's similar to how Bass Nation is with Good Old Boys. Same sort of deal. So they at the time were taking the top 3. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was the top 3. You could go to the KBF National Championship, and that was on Kentucky Lake in Tennessee. Which I qualified for, but at my time and my age, I didn't have money to travel. To go fish it. I did qualify for it. I was a qualifier for it, but I wasn't able to make it, which I believe it was like the top 200 in the country were able to go to that. I think it's bigger now. So that was cool. But just like that 2017 through like 2020, kind of COVID, it was kind of COVID was like, that 17 to 2020, those 3 years, I was like trying to figure out how to be the next Kevin VanDam, basically.
Hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that. It seems like you're pretty successful too, especially for being self-taught.
Yeah. I didn't I give a lot of credit to my uncle and my good friend Chris on showing me more or less how to slow down.
Yeah.
Because I would throw a jig for 3 casts and then, nope, that's not working. And then I throw a crankbait for 3 casts. Oh, that's not working. Oh, let me try spinnerbait. Oh, that's not working. Let me try Senko. And they're like, dude, slow it down. Like, make sure they really don't want it. Because sometimes, some mornings they're finicky. And now I come with more of a methodical approach to it. Try to be more sneaky, or if you got to be aggressive, be aggressive. Kind of depends on the lay of the water on the day. And you got to figure out what they're doing. If they want an aggressive bite, you give them the aggressive bite. If they need to slow it down and you got to force feed it to them, well, sounds like you're going to have a sore wrist in the morning from just standing there all day.
Right. So how does that transpose over into fly fishing? So you said you're starting to get into fly fishing. How long have you been trying that for?
So, okay. Roughly the same time of all of this happening, we had a Gander Mountain up here in another town nearby. And they were doing a going out of business where they were, I think at the time we thought they were closing, but it was just converting into Gander Outdoors, which is now Gander RV. When they were doing the flip from Gander Mountain to Gander Outdoors, they had like this huge clearance sale. And I'm like, well, I hunt, I fish. It's worth my time. Let me drive there. It's probably about a half hour from my house. So I go there with the wife and I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, I don't really need any of this. I grabbed some bass lures and kind of restock on some of that stuff, but kind of in the corner is this, it's like a fly rod kit, and it was a Reddington, crosswater. I believe that's what it was. And, it's got like the topo rod. And it was just a whole kit. And I'm like, and I'm looking at it and it's hanging on a tag. And it said it was like, at the time, it was like $250, $300, something like that. And it had the, a sticker on it. And the sticker means X amount of percent. Well, the sticker was like pink, and that meant like 85 or 80% off. Wow. And I'm like, I've never even tried to fly. I would watch videos on YouTube or on TV and you see these guys whipping flies around. I'm like, that is freaking artists doing their craft. I'm like, I can hardly write my name without a letter backwards. Man, I get confused on which way to go to my bathroom sometimes. I mean, no way am I going to fly fish here. So, what the hell? It was like $80 or something. I bought it. And I'm like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. I don't know what the hell to do with it.
Right.
And there's like this little like fold of paper in there, and it's like, just pick it up and go from like 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock and then let out a little bit of line. It's easy. Anyone can do it. And after just doing what I thought I had to do, fail. And then I hopped on YouTube, and for a short while there, I did with that what I was doing with bass and getting a little bit obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I would just practice in my backyard or in the side yard or whatever. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, my 5-foot cast where my leader isn't even all the way out of my rod yet. And now I'm actually casting 30, 40 feet. And okay, now I need to figure out how to be more accurate. Now I need to figure out what to do when there's a tree behind me or a bush behind me and roll casts and stuff. And I don't remember why. And I don't really think there was a reason. I think I just fell back obsessed with bass fishing that I put the rod up, and it just kind of sat in my garage for a couple of years and didn't touch it. And recently I had been thinking, I'm like, man, I really should fly fish. I'm like, I really should go out. So I don't know how world or regionally famous it is, but the Salmon River in New York, that's about a half hour north of me. And I know people come up from New York City to fish it. It's a huge fishery, very popular, steelhead, salmon, coho, big stuff in there. And I'm like, man, maybe I'll try to fish that. I did it once when I was 15 or 16 with a friend with just a little spinning rod, nothing important. He's like, let's go. And I'm like, maybe I'll try to actually fish that. I'm like, well, I want to fly fish it because I'm stupid. I can't just use what I have. I have to try something new. I already don't know what the hell I'm doing, so let's add more difficulty to it. So I go in the backyard with the fly rod, knock the dust off it. I'm like, okay, well, I didn't really forget how to cast it. And then the wife and I are talking. We go up to the Adirondacks, and I'm like, the Adirondacks, okay. So that's the Ausable River. And I'm like, I'm just going to tuck this in the car. We're just going to sneak that up there. And if I get a minute, I'm going to maybe sneak out. So I was able to do a little bit of fishing up there. And this would have been, well, you saw the picture that I posted on Facebook asking where that was. And
yeah.
That was that trip. And I'm like, this is next level stuff. With bass fishing, I can go out and I can, release my competitive nature and go out and compete. And I'm like, but fly fishing, you're knee deep into a swift stream with fish around you and nothing but you and nature and maybe a deer or bear. That's just serenity. It's every direction you look when you're casting, you just look around and it's just a postcard every direction you're looking. And I'm like, I can get into this. This is peaceful. This is not, 2 a.m. the night before a bass tournament figuring out what lure I want to tie on.
Exactly. It's definitely peaceful. And it's kind of one of those places to where everything else is just so quiet. You just hear the birds and you just hear the water running, and it's just absolutely peaceful.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting dichotomy. It's you have one for your competitive side and one for you just want to be tranquil and just kind of relax. And it's really interesting description because before I got into fly fishing, I was more bass and just conventional gear in general. I fish for whatever, but mainly bass and then whatever was on the coast. Redfish mainly was my favorite, and then some trout. But when I was listening to you talk about, that, I guess, contrast for you, I got to thinking, and I think I am a bit more relaxed when I'm fly fishing than when I'm conventional gear fishing for whatever reason. But I never really paid much attention to it. But I think I also kind of get a little competitive with myself when it comes to the fly fishing thing, because I notice that I can get frustrated, when I'm snagging everything, catching grass on my back cast, or if the wind's whipping my fly around me. It's just when I'm trying to make a decent cast, it can get really frustrating. I think I do get mad at myself because I know I can be better or whatever. So it goes from being a really nice evening out in the water to God, I hate this. Why do I want to do this? I'm going to chunk this freaking rod in the water. And then I think it's even worse whenever I go to a new body of water and I'm with Russell, for example. We went on to the White River. We went on a guided trip. dude, I was like really quiet and I was focused because I was like dead set on trying to catch my first brown of the trip. And I was like laser focused. And I just, and it was a fun trip, and no one had like this pressure except for myself. I felt pressure that I needed to make this happen because I didn't know when I was going to be able to go up there again and do it. So like I felt like I needed to get it done for myself. And so it wasn't until I netted that one and only brown that I hooked that day that I felt like, all right, got it done. Now let's have some fun. And I my cast went to shit after that, but I didn't even care anymore. Like I was just living good, man. So it's kind of funny, like when you put it like that, I kind of go back and forth. But I think for the most part, fly fishing is like, I think that's what I do when I just want to like relax. A lot of times it's not even about the fishing. It's just like getting out, whatever. But I think that can be said, in general. But for me, I think that's where it's at. But,
I think a lot of it is the mental game with fishing. If you know where the fish are and you know what they're eating, but they're not doing it, I think a lot of the issue is that it's in your head. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, I've been looking at a graph on a bass boat, seeing a fish swimming around a log on like Panoptics, and the guy at the front of the boat is throwing a blue and black jig, and you throw it at that fish and it bites, and there's two more fish swimming there, and you throw blue and black and it just won't bite. And I think a lot of the stress, the issue is your mental, like getting in your own head on why won't this bite, instead of trying to change something up. At least myself, I'll sit there and I'll be like, why? So I think that's going to be, at least right now, the relaxation of fly fishing, because I'm total novice and I don't know what the hell to throw. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be throwing this or not. But the guy at the fly shop said to, so I'm just going to throw it and see what happens. And if they don't bite, there ain't no fish in this river.
I think so. Like, so when you bass fish, do you throw swim baits at all?
Yeah, I'd throw some.
Yeah. I think I mean, the fish are going to do whatever. Like they're fish. They're like, them well, obviously, and well enough to do well in tournaments and place. It's like the same thing, just different equipment, more or less. Technique's going to be different. With conventional fishing, like it's probably easier for you to get deeper faster than with a fly rod. So like fishing those deep spots are going to be more difficult. Right. But I think you would be impressed or surprised at how well your knowledge will translate to fly fishing once you get more comfortable with it. There's have you ever listened to the podcast? It's with Joe Cermelli. It is
Cut and Retie.
Yes, thank you. He did. Oh, dude, it's a fantastic podcast. He's awesome. But he had a guest on. I believe I can't remember. I believe his name was Brian Wiseman. He's a fly fisherman. He's like really big into streamers and stuff. They were talking about streamer fishing. He's like, dude, if you want to get really good at streamer fishing for one season, don't even touch a fly rod. Use conventional gear, throw swim baits, and it will make you a better streamer fisherman. And I was like,
that's interesting.
And I was like, dude, that's really interesting. Because like streamer fishermen, conventional gears throwing swim baits, like they know what's up. Like you can catch some monsters with throwing swim baits and everything. And I think the techniques, where you're going to throw that swim bait, what time of year, the size, all that stuff will translate over to fly fishing really well. But it's just different. Right. So I was like, and that was coming from a fly fishing dude. And I think he at that point in time was also transitioning more into swim bait fishing. And he's like, yeah, man, like I fully believe if you want to become a better streamer fisherman, don't even touch it. Just pick up a swim bait, pick up a bait cast rod and get after it. Like you'll become better by the time you touch that rod again. I was like, dude, that's pretty sick. Well,
you're using the swim bait to replicate what a fish is underwater. Yeah. And then you're doing the same thing with a streamer. So it makes sense. That makes very good sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought about that. I was like, damn, that's pretty cool.
Do you streamer fish much?
Do I?
Yes.
No, I would say probably not.
So have you ever thrown any type of streamer or do you know what a streamer is on the fly rod?
I know what a streamer is. I don't think I've ever thrown one.
Okay, so if you use your knowledge of bass fishing that for your conventional stuff, it's basically the same thing as that. But instead of using a crankbait, a rattle trap, a spook, or anything like that, it's similar in terms of the concept of how you would fish it, but there's numerous kinds. So they can go from very basic, like a fly they call a woolly bugger, which is basically just, chenille and sometimes a beadhead and, some marabou. But you swim it the same way. So you could strip, pause, strip, pause.
Right.
Stuff like that. Yep. And then it gets more to the fancy side where you can get like game changers and stuff like that and articulated flies, which have multiple hooks and
like 12, 13 inch freaking big, like multi-shank behemoths. It's crazy.
Yep, exactly.
Wow.
And if you're, up in your region, there's a lot of people. Have you ever heard of fly versus jerk tournaments over in Sweden?
No.
So it is interesting. So it's all on Northern Pike. And they're catching 40, 50 kilogram pike over there. Of course, it's metric. So, but there's a team called Team Vision that has been there. I think they're on season 14 now. And Team Vision has a guy named Nicholas Bauer on there, and he's all fly. All he does is fly fish, and he's won that entire tournament going against conventional guys before.
Wow.
And he'll tie these huge, like 13-inch freaking streamers with, little swirly tails on the end of them.
That's wild.
Yeah, you can, like, I tie up some flies that are made out of just faux fur. And it was funny when you said fire tiger colored painted stuff earlier. I'll tie like fire tiger flies, and that's when I catch my pickerel on here. And they're probably about 6 inches long. But you strip them just like you would fish with conventional gear. But there's, the names get pretty wild. So there's like circus peanuts and sex dungeons and all sorts of stuff that, that are just massive articulated flies that have movements similar to like something you'd find with the segmented crank or something like that.
Right. That's interesting.
So you can get into stuff like that and just use your knowledge and the same techniques. And I'm pretty sure you'd probably be more successful getting bass on them than I would.
Dude, yeah, I bet you could wreck shop at some of those local creeks and things. But yeah, we're not trying to sell you on the fly fishing thing, whatever. Just,
I'm already sold. I'm just gaining knowledge right now.
No, but like even for myself, like I'm self-taught. I didn't have anybody, like I didn't go to like, I should take casting lessons. I probably have a lot of bad habits, but like I'm all self-taught, YouTube and stuff, and just trial and error before YouTube was like a thing. But a lot of the a lot of stuff I learned conventional fishing, I think really helped me make the transition into being like a more successful fly fisherman. Because the water is the same. The fish are the same. All that's the same. It's just like, just how I guess approach it is going to be different and stuff. But yeah, so I think it really, really helped me a lot. And one thing that Russell knows, like I'm a streamer dude. Like I cannot stand nymphing. Not that there's anything against it. It's just boring to me, and like, and a good topwater bite. You would know a topwater bite is just stellar. It's like hard to compare to anything.
I love a good topwater bite with bass. That's exciting. Like
a
flat calm morning, and all of a sudden, just something explodes on your lure.
Oh my goodness!
Yep.
That's
Have you ever had a topwater bite on the fly before?
I have. So I got this like little, I don't even know what brand kit. And it was just like a variety of flies, and they had little tiny poppers. And we have a family pond that's like overstocked with stuff. And it was like first cast, and I just cast out. I'm holding a fly as if it's a jerkbait rod, and I'm probably not doing it right, but I was like snap, and it went bloop, bloop, boom. One just crushed it. And I'm like, oh, sick.
Dude, that's so sick,
awesome. I'd say probably my most memorable topwater bite. I was throwing a articulated popper that was probably like 6 or 7 inches long, and it has a 2-aught and a 1-aught hook on it, and there's some segments in between, and it's tied very similar to like a game changer, but it has a big double barrel popper on the front. Thing is freaking massive, and I threw it out in the ripple on the Ouachita River one time, and a freaking smallmouth just nailed it top water, full body out of the water. I was just like, Dude, I ended up losing that fish. I didn't land it, but it was a good size. I'd say probably a 20-inch plus smallmouth, and so it sucked not landing that one, but just seeing it was just freaking insane.
Oh man, we always remember the ones that got away, dude.
Yeah,
the heartbreakers. I still like my biggest smallmouth. I only caught 2 in my life. Russell was there for both of them. They're like, I don't know, 10 inches. That might even be generous, but dude, they're such pretty fish, dude. I want to catch more, man. They're
tiger striping is beautiful.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
It is
gorgeous.
I think the biggest smallmouth I've caught is 17 inches. Obviously, we're typically on kayaks, so we don't weigh them, and we've never done tournaments, so that's not something that I've ever done.
Right.
But I have a bump board and a catch board, and I'll measure them out and let them go. I've done quite a few kayak tournaments, and all the kayak tournaments we've done have always been length in at the end. So
that's all of ours.
I wouldn't know what they'd weigh, but it's I haven't caught a big one yet, and they're in the river systems here. There's plenty of them. I have a buddy named Evan that he owns Ouachita Fly Anglers company, and their guide service in the Central Arkansas area, and every so often they're posting 20, 22, 24 inch smallmouth. I'm like,
that's
I want one so bad.
Dude, there's some here in Texas, but they're far and few between, at least compared to like largies and stuff. But there's some in some lakes like up north. I've heard that there's some smallmouths like in the Guadalupe and in the San Marcos, and of course in the Devils. They got some pretty nice ones out there. But I mean, they're all those places are too far from College Station, unfortunately. So we just got largies and striped bass mainly out here.
Yeah, smallmouth. I can go. I don't live far from like any of the rivers, so basically anywhere up here for the most part, unless it's like its own little tiny secluded little lake or pond, is going to have smallmouth in it. Nice. But we have smallmouth in the rivers. Most of the time we call them river rats because they're small compared to normal. Like if you catch a 3-pound smallmouth or like a 18-inch smallmouth up here in the river, that's a damn good smallmouth. Mm-hmm. I've seen them bigger. I've seen them, bigger in the river and whatnot. But like you can go out in Lake Ontario and you can catch a 24, 25-inch for 5 or 6 pounds. And that's a northern smallmouth.
That's
freaking awesome. So earlier you're talking about species that y'all have up there, and you're talking about, muskie and pike and pickerel. So I've never heard of pickerel being up there. Is that like, are they everywhere? Just like, a pike or a muskie would be?
They're like infested up here.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I've always heard people call the pickerel the southern cousin of the pike. And so I guess because of that analogy, I just figured, they're not up north, but that's crazy. So are they small, big? How big are they up there typically?
I mean, they can get decent size. They're chain pickerel. I mean, you can catch them. I guess I've never put one on a bump board to see, but probably 27, 28 inches long.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you can get them 4 or 5 pounds. I mean, I've caught some decently big ones. I mean, most of the ones you're catching are probably, I don't know, 23, 24, 25 inches. I would say average, but like anything with anywhere, they get big and you catch little ones. The ones in our river systems are probably smaller than the ones in our lakes. And usually in the lakes, Oneida Lake, they're terrible. They're terrible in Oneida Lake. I believe they're still doing it, but they used to have derbies in the spring to kind of cull them out because there's so many. And I don't know if they're technically considered invasive, but I don't think the DEC up here really likes them.
I see.
But
That's
I don't.
Nuts.
Most anything I catch, I don't have interest in really eating. I'm honestly not like a seafood guy. I just like the sport of catching them. So most things I'll do catch and release. If I catch a good deep water, trout or salmon, might keep that. But
right,
like I'm not eating bass or pickerel or pike. Granted, if I'm out camping or something and kind of living off it, maybe that's a different story. But
so
it definitely is.
On the topic of species, is there like a species on your bucket list that you haven't caught that you really want to, or like a place that you want to go that you haven't got to fish yet?
In the north or in general?
Just in general.
I guess there's probably a bunch. I want to catch like peacock bass down in Florida.
Dude, same.
I want to catch what are they, the clown knife fish?
Yeah, those things are wicked looking.
Catch one of them, that'd be cool. I think everyone will agree with catching tarpon on a fly.
Absolutely.
That would be nuts. Destination. I mean, I want to check out. There's so much. I mean, just in bass water, like, you know, I want to go to, anywhere down south. Throw me in a lake down south and I'll fish it.
Right.
Like the Harris Chain, Okeechobee, but I hear that's kind of going through a rough patch with their Department of Natural Resources spray and stuff.
Talking.
Yeah.
Lake Fork.
I was just going to say Lake Fork. Really, throw me in a pond in Texas. That'd be cool. I hear they get kind of big down there.
My biggest bass came from a pond. It was like 8 pounds, 8-ish pounds.
Oh, wow. Yep. Yeah, that's probably about, mine was a private pond. Actually, it was a private pond I learned to fly fish in.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
The same pond as a family pond.
My biggest bass was only, how big do you think that bass was that I caught right outside my apartment? I'll say probably like 3, 4.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest bass, conventional and fly. So
nice.
I've always kind of been known for catching all of the small fish until that weekend. And then that weekend I caught, it was nuts. I caught that big bass. I caught like a 25-pound plus carp, caught big brown, that 28-inch cutthroat, like a bunch of big fish all in one weekend, when for years prior, I don't think I'd caught a fish over 6 inches.
Yeah, that weekend was wild. That was a good weekend nuts. For fishing.
That sounds like a good weekend.
So I see you got a hat on over there. It says a corny boards. What's up with that?
So I build and design and create custom cornhole boards.
Nice.
Sick. How long have you been doing that for?
Oh, geez, probably 2019, I think, was my first year doing that. I built this set out of boredom. And then my buddy asked me, he goes, "Do you think you could wrap that like Cincinnati Bengals?" I'm like, "Of course I could do whatever I want." So I did, and he bought them for like, I don't know, $50 or something. And then he showed a friend who placed an order, who told a friend, and word of mouth spread. And then next thing you know, I'm making a Facebook page. And then it got going to where I was selling a decent bit. And then COVID hit. The world, stopped turning. Everything shut down. But the one thing, like, COVID obviously affected the wood price and all of that to continue building. But the one blessing in disguise of it was the stimulus checks that everybody was getting. And everyone's getting like $600 every other month and doesn't know what to spend it on, because, why would you spend it on necessities? So all of a sudden I went from building like 10 sets of cornhole boards to like 100 sets of cornhole boards. Wow. Because everyone's like, that's pretty cool. So sold a bunch of them, and now I'm able to grow as a business, I suppose, have a website and whatnot.
That's awesome.
Been trying to, they're expensive to ship, but I have shipped them. And I do, for the most part, unless you have something extremely specific you want that you found online that I can get my hands on, everything I do is pretty much custom. I spend many hours in Photoshop designing, recreating. I've done pictures of, dad with his kid holding his first buck or the kid's first buck, or I've done wedding ones with people's names. I've done sports teams, but don't send me a cease and desist, NFL. Those ones I don't post about, but they have been done. I'll admit that. But I've networked with some really great people. I get their vinyl wraps I put on top. And now I've hit a point where I can do direct print boards, where it's actually like the whole top that you're playing on goes into this gigantic printer and it prints it right onto the wood. They put like an epoxy clear coat on it, out the door. No worries about it. Most of them that I do are like a vinyl wrap with just a ton of clear coat on top, and they're a lot easier on my side because I don't have that big printer, so I have to kind of buy that out, and it just gets expensive. Mm-hmm. I work with another company that's out of the southern tier of New York who makes my custom bags that have my company name on them and whatnot. So it's grown into a thing. I'm now buying my wood out of Virginia because it's next to impossible to find 3/4 18 millimeter Baltic birch in New York. And that's what everyone likes to play on. That's what the pros play on. It's heavy. It's dense. I'm sure.
I was just about to ask what kind of wood you used.
What's that?
I was just about to ask what kind of wood you use.
Yeah, it's tournament grade Baltic birch, 13 plies in there. It's heavy. What I say is that these boards, grandma's not going to throw them around, but the kids aren't going to break them.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so sick, man.
I had a person, pull their truck. They used them as like jack stands for a truck. And I'm like, dude, I do not condone you doing that. But that's really good marketing, but I can't share that because that's liability.
So that avoids warranty, awesome. I guess, huh?
Yeah, that one avoids warranty. I sold a set to this guy that he races. There's big like dirt modifieds up here, dirt race cars. He races those. His son races motocross. Decent amount of wealth in the family. They're doing very well for themselves. And he drives like a brand new. I think it's like a Ram 3500 fully loaded like Lariat, and they had like a 54-inch trailer camper on it, and towing it with gooseneck and whatnot. And they were packing up to leave. And they just bought the boards, and they were kind of in like a rush to get out of there because there's like a storm coming in. They were staying right on Lake Ontario, and there's a storm coming across from like Canada. And he had his kids pick up the cornhole boards. Well, they picked up the cornhole boards, but they didn't put them away. They conveniently hid them behind the back tires. They threw them under the back of the camper is what they did to try to get them out of the rain. So I see what they were doing, but Dad's idea was throw them into the camper so we can get the hell out of here and get on the road and like not just sit in this field during a freaking thunderstorm. So Dad backed out and felt the trailer go thump, thump. And I'm getting a text about an hour later asking, he's like, I know these aren't covered under warranty, but I think I'm going to need some new tops. They didn't break, but it cracked the clear coat I put on. It was like spider webbed, and it ripped the vinyl underneath. I'm like, wow. So they took the weight of a 54-foot like camper. I guess that's a mobile home, small mansion. And he backed over. Like, wow, I guess they hold up pretty good. I mean, I've had people like jump 4-wheelers off them and stupid stuff like that. So they're pretty solid.
That's pretty
I would
impressive.
say so. That's very impressive. I've made a few cornhole boards, and they were proper size, but definitely not that kind of quality. I think I used pine for them or something.
Okay. I mean, if you're running like a 3/4 inch top on like 2x4 frame, that'd be pretty solid.
Yeah. And that's what I did. I did a 2x4 frame, 2x4 legs with I think it was a 3/4 inch lag bolt through to where I could fold them underneath and, cross member in 2x4 and then topped it. And then I did a Shosuke Bond top on it. Just burned it and then sanded it and then clear coated it after that. I mean, they lasted a good while. I don't even remember what happened to the ones that I kept for myself because I sold a few of them. And then the ones that I had, did I give them to you, Jose, when I moved to Arkansas?
Negative.
Maybe I gave them to my buddy Mike. I don't know where they went. I know that they were still in my garage when I moved up here. And then when I went to go clean out my house a few months later, I gave them to somebody. I don't remember who it was though. But I haven't played cornhole in freaking forever.
Dude, I haven't.
So the bags that you make, are they sand or bean?
So I do corn, like traditional corn. And then they have like it's a plastic resin media for the more like pro feel, like what the pros use.
Yeah.
I use a duck cloth on one side, and then on the other side it's like a felt. So you have a stick slide and a slick side is how I say it.
I see.
The corn is a little bit cheaper because, that's $6 a bag at Tractor Supply, whereas your actual plastic resin is more expensive to buy for I call him my bag guy, and everyone kind of laughs that I just have a bag guy. But no, his name's Luke. He's great. And these things, I mean, I'd put him next to any name brand out there. They're really good quality. I haven't had one come back, minus a guy left one that was corn filled. He was camping, left it on a picnic table, and the squirrels ripped it apart to get the corn inside.
Yeah,
for playing, I've never had one issue, so I'm like, I'm not even gonna look at another market. I'll pay whatever he tells me.
Yeah,
right.
So
yeah, I've played with some trash bags and some trash boards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of them that you get are just that, 1/4 inch thick.
Yep.
Just the bag bounces when it hits in the middle. It's like, so you have to hit at the front so it slides up. Just cheap boards.
when I was kind of doing some R&D, just figuring out what's decent product to use and whatnot, I found these. It was like Amazon. They were like $10.99 for an 8-pack of bags, and they guaranteed to be 1 pound, 6 inch by 6 inch, no taller than 1 inch standing. I'm like, okay, so the regulation bags. Well, we left them out, and it didn't rain or anything. It was just like the dew of night, like just the moisture setting. And we got up in the morning and we were playing. Well, we're throwing, and there's like just streaks of mud. And we're like, what the heck? And you grab those bags and you squish them. They were just filled with sand. I'm like,
that's crazy.
What? So like the water got in and it's like washing out my inside, coming out through the seams. I'm like, well, these are stupid. So those didn't last. I found just cheap ones on like eBay and Amazon where you throw them a dozen times, then they hit and then the stitching just explodes and all the crap inside blows out, and people plant corn in their backyards now. So
I wonder if anybody's ever had some with corn where the corn is sprouted. That's where I thought yours was going whenever you're talking about the water. I wonder if that's ever happened.
So I should. We had that Facebook group you set. I'll send you guys a picture after this, and it's nothing to do with cornhole boards. But my buddy, one of my best friends, Darren, he sent me a picture. He goes, only. So we live in Oswego County in New York. He goes, only in Oswego County do you see this. This is this house, and it's like 25 feet off the road. It's like the middle of a town, and their whole front yard is like cornfield, but it's 20 feet off the road and it's corn pockets. It's like, only in Oswego County do you see this. I'm like, what the hell is that?
That's crazy.
I'll send you guys that after we're done here. That was comical. I'm like, what is even happening?
That's insane. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that here or in Texas. I mean, there's some areas in Texas where the house won't be far off the road and there's corn in front of it, but it's also part of a big cornfield. And they're just, maximizing the area they can plant, but I've never seen it in a town.
I think the most Texas thing I've seen is I was driving down this road in Kingsville, like this little neighborhood. Dude, I happen to look over, and on the roof of a garage, dude, there's a damn prickly pear growing out of the roof. Like,
really?
Yeah, I had no idea. It's just like, how the hell does that even happen, man? And those things can grow anywhere. There's an oak tree at the South Mountain River State Park at the little check-in station. It's got a prickly pear growing out of the oak tree on one of the branches. It's freaking
cool.
wild.
I've seen that down on the coast before. I've seen like prickly pear and other types of cacti growing off the live oaks and stuff.
That's incredible.
Nuts.
Yeah, those things are wild.
Yeah.
So I think the most Arkansas thing that I've seen has nothing to do with anything growing. It's more somebody just standing on the sidewalk, walking backwards, leaning forward, or sideways. Yeah, there's a lot of meth usage here, so that's probably the most Arkansas thing that I've seen. Yeah. You have the cornhole board business, right? And then you have another business to do with doe urine. Is that what you said? Yeah. So I'm a glorified pee salesman. Hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
I came up with an idea. This one's a little more newer. This is my 3rd or 4th year doing this. Mm-hmm. I would buy, and I don't want to, product bash, because I think a lot of the products on the shelves are great products, but I would buy stuff and you'd get the little bottle of urine, and it's like dark mud brown, and it says 100% urine. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, I've never seen an animal pee that color. Right. And my in-laws are dairy farmers, so like you see cows pee and it's not brown. It's yellow, but it's not like whatever. And I'm like, that can't be fresh. That was my thought. I'm like, it's sitting on a shelf. Sure, there's a shelf life, I'm sure. And they add, I've discovered that a lot of companies add like a sodium benzoate, I think is the name of it. I'm not a chemist, but I guess that preserves it. Yeah. But it would just turn dingy brown, and then you open it and it smells like ammonia. because that's what urea is.
Yeah.
But then I think it is I just have this, like, again, my in-laws being dairy farmers, you can walk through the barn, you can see a cow pee, and then you can smell it, and it doesn't smell like ammonia. It smells like pee. And it's a weird science, I'm sure. So I had this idea, and I'm like, I wonder if there's like a whitetail ranch, a whitetail farm, someone that would probably be growing deer, because, you know, there's restaurants that'll do like venison burgers and such and like grow them for meat.
Yeah.
I wonder if there is a farm that would sell their urine, and how the hell do you approach a farmer and say, I want to buy your and after a lot of dead end phone calls of people that thought that I was crazy as hell, finally one person is like, you know, you're not the first person to want to do that. And I'm like, oh, and then they said that they're with it's a non-disclosure agreement. So even I don't know who it is, but they said that they're with a known reputable brand supplying them. So they have this farm facility. It's more of a facility than it is a farm, with all of these beautiful deer, like big fat does, big, huge, like 16-point drop tine bucks, like just stuff out of movies. And they have essentially this barn, and they'll put the doe in the barn. And I guess how they do it, and again, not a scientist here, just a pea salesman. How they do it is they have like louvers on the windows, and they'll close the windows, and they'll make the day for those deer darker, longer. They'll put them in, I don't want to say complete, it's not complete darkness, but it's just dimmer. So they'll give them shorter hours of daylight, along with they have a cooling system. So in the middle of like August, they'll get, 20 doe or something in this big barn, make it darker, cool it down. It tricks them into thinking it's an early fall, and they'll start going into heat. They'll start producing estrus. Now, when they feed them, like humans, when you eat and drink a bunch, you usually have to use the bathroom kind of right after. They clip them in a stall as if they were a cow. They feed them their normal feed, and there's just a collection tray on the back. So when they use the bathroom, it gets collected into that tray. It goes down, it gets pumped into essentially a catch. From that catch, it goes direct to like gallon jugs. I mean, I could bring 1,000-gallon jug if I wanted them just to fill it, but I buy it per gallon, direct from the deer pan, main tank bottle, UPS, me. So it's essentially as direct as you can get without following a deer with a bottle behind it.
That's awesome.
So they already had that set up, and I'm just thinking, my God, this has to be so freaking expensive. And it is. It's quite expensive. So I always thought, I'm like, well, deer urine in the store, it's a byproduct, right? So it's going to get thrown away even if you don't buy it. It doesn't. It's free. It's a byproduct of raising that animal. So sure, great for the middleman to figure out how to make money off of that. But on a business standpoint, does it have to be so expensive? Because that's why you see a bottle of urine in the store for $30, is because someone says it's $30 and they have to buy it, and then they market it. So I've grown a relationship with that farm, and they can basically supply me for the most part with anything I want, as long as it's within reason of the time frames of the seasons, which up north, our rut is usually in full swing approximately around Halloween up here.
I see.
So like right now, they're not doing much. Like the bucks are just starting to rub off their velvet. They're just starting to get into it. So they are able to do that, to collect that urine from those does that are going into heat. In the same barn, there's like a fence. On the other side, they have some of their bucks. Now, they have specific bucks that are big. They have great genetics, but once they start their bone growth on their head, they clip them so they can handle them. It's like a bull kind of deal. They keep them in there, and they told me that they clip it to protect them from each other, because how they collect I sell buck and rut urine. Same thing, is they let them get close to those does without breeding them, men are men kind of thing. They get feisty, they get fired up, all their testosterone's running, they want to fight with each other to get that hot doe, collect that urine. That urine has a lot of their testosterone. Progesterone, I believe, is the other chemical in that hormone. And it's got all their hormones as if they are pissed off, mad, wanting to fight whoever who's in the way of his, little girlfriend that he's trying to hook up with.
That's crazy. I always wondered how they went about harvesting urine from animals. I just always assumed it was probably something like putting a what are those things called?
Catheter?
Yeah, I always thought it was like a catheter or something like that, but it seems a lot more efficient the way that they actually do it.
This is basically it's that catch pan, and if they poop, there's like a screen so the poop doesn't wash in with the pee kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's on a pitched angle, so it just flows to one way, goes into a catch basin, gets pumped into a tank. They keep obviously all the tanks separate so you don't have blending issues. Out of the tank into the bottle, straight to the consumer, which would be myself. I bottle it into small 2-ounce bottles for, customers to use because, who wants to buy a gallon of doe urine at like $400 other than me. So yeah, that's how it's done. But like friends and stuff that question me about how do I obtain it, I just tell them I have like a little catch pan and a really good ghillie suit, and I just army crawl around the woods, slide that pan under a hot doe. She doesn't even know I'm there.
That's hilarious.
It's like during the rut. I'm not out there hunting. I'm out there trying to capture some puss.
I don't shoot the big bucks. I just want his pee. I don't care about his animals.
And I don't think we preface this. So for our listeners who may not know what we're talking about, this is used for hunting purposes. We're not pervy, weird pervy. Like, God dang, those dudes are some weird shit.
Don't consume it. Don't vape it. Don't use it as salad dressing. Don't mix it with your chew.
So actually, this is a good point. So how would you use this product then in a hunting situation for those who may not know?
So traditionally, a white-tailed deer has some of the, comparably in America, it has some of the strongest olfactory glands in their nose of most animals here. I'm in the Northeast, so they probably have the strongest nose of anything around here, even more than like a bloodhound kind of deal. Big communication with them is scent. So like us, we see, we hear, we feel, we smell, whatnot. But there's some times where you can be 500 yards away from a buck and he'll kind of look in your direction, stand up real tall, turn around and walk away. Well, he just smelled you. He didn't like something and he turned around and walked away. A lot of times they'll smell you before they see you or hear you because they have such a sense of smell that we don't have. So it doesn't make sense to us naturally as humans because we don't have that good sense of smell. You get home and grandma's baking cookies. Man, that smells delicious. Well, we can't smell when our romantic partner is in the mood, if you will, where deer can. When a doe goes into heat, her hormones change. That essentially, in a sense of smell, is telling a buck that she's ready to breed. That her body is ready to reproduce and do what they have to do. At the same time, the bucks smell that. Once the bucks make that connection, they're chasing that doe. Well, there's more than one buck in the woods, so then another buck comes in. That's when you have bucks fighting. So when they're fighting, just like, Mr. Tough Guy at the bar has high testosterone and wants to fight another guy who has high testosterone, all of that hormone comes out in their urine. And they have also other secretional glands on their body. They have some kind of between their knees on their thighs. They have some that are in between their toes. They actually have communication glands in their head that are non-testosterone. They're just communication. If you see a buck, smacking his head into trees and whatnot, they have a orbital, preorbital gland by their eye. They have forehead gland. They have interdigital gland that's between like their hooves, their toes, however you want to do that. They have tarsal, metatarsal glands. They have all these glands that secrete different scents that say different things. So basically, a doe, when she's ready to breed, will essentially, for lack of a better term, off-gas her musk. Like, you'll just smell if you're a buck, you'll just smell that she's kind of ready.
Yeah.
Bucks a lot of times will go and they'll scrape the ground and they'll clear like a 3 or 4 foot patch underneath the low hanging branch and they'll pee in it. They'll put their back knees together, squat down, and they'll pee down their legs into that. And that's basically saying, hey, I'm here. And that's called a scrape. Mm-hmm. And then they'll rub their face in like a low hanging pine. And that's almost like in a sense, every deer smells a little bit different. That's kind of like leaving a serial number to who was here.
Yeah.
Later on in the season, as it gets hotter, as she gets hotter, more ready to breed, now they're marking their territory saying, get the hell out of here. This is my doe. And then another buck might come in and pee in that spot and say, that's my doe. And that's when you see bucks fighting, is because they're trying to claim their territory and trying to claim all the doe in that area.
Yeah.
So a lot of this communication that says, hey, I'm the big stud in this area, go smell my pee. That's what it says, is it's their levels of hormone in their urine, their musk that they're leaving behind. And it's her, letting out her scent saying, I'm ready to breed. Somebody come breed with me.
Yeah.
And then it's all the men fighting for her, basically.
I see. So if you're out there hunting and stuff, you would put it near a scrape or out in the woods in order to attract the bucks in. Right.
So a very common tactic is, it's a scent line where they sell scent wicks. You can dip them into urine and it's like a cotton wick and it'll just, draw the urine out, and then you hang it and then the wind just carries it whatever way. A very common tactic is a very hot doe, an estrus doe. That's going to tell a buck in the area, hey, there's a hot doe over here. I can smell her. Right.
Yeah.
So we use scent wicks. A lot of guys will just, steal tampons from their old lady. Same thing. Mm-hmm. Tie them to a tree branch and hang them out. You can also yourself with your boot, whatever, kick a 3-foot patch of dirt, just clean all the leaves out of it and pour urine in it. That's essentially making a mock scrape, they call it. I also sell, it's a 100% hemp rope. And I have an orbital gland. It's like a kind of a deodorant stick, and it has all of their head glands of communication. You can hang that rope out of the tree, wipe it with that stick. And then you have the scrape nearby or right underneath it. And that essentially to them, that mimics exactly what they're doing in nature, but you're putting it in a spot that's more convenient for you. So if you have a tree stand, 200 feet off the main trail where they're hitting, you can put in 1 or 2 mock scrapes and hopefully kind of direct their traffic to be like, who the heck's here? Like leaving that scent trail of the urine you're putting out obviously isn't a deer that's in your area. So it's a new face. It's a new thing. And then once the season gets closer and you have, a bunch of rutted up, pissed off bucks, and then you put in a new buck, who the hell is this guy? And why is he around my women? A lot of times that's a killer because he's looking for a fight or he's looking for that hot doe to breed with.
Yeah.
And that's all.
That's awesome.
I'm
not much of a hunter. I wouldn't say I'm not much of a hunter. I'd say I'm not much of an experienced hunter. I do enjoy hunting. I just don't go very often. And so like a lot of that's just news to me that I've never heard. So I am that person that may not know. Thank you for all that.
It's an interesting science, and similar to bass fishing is, a couple of years ago, I just got obsessed with learning how deer work because I figured, truthfully, between you guys and all the listeners listening to this, I don't have any buck hanging on my wall, and I own a business that sells products that has been proven time and time again to put big bucks on walls. So I'm still learning. I'm 28 years old. I've been hunting for, probably 15-ish years now. Mm-hmm. And I still haven't shot the big one. I've passed on a bunch. I'm kind of selective. I've had opportunity. Yeah. Actually we had a buck we named Houdini because he kept just disappearing. When you think you'd see him, he'd disappear. I had him at full draw at about 40 yards and he wouldn't step around the tree, that story. And
yeah,
I had a shot and I wasn't confident in myself to let the arrow fly, and kick myself in the ass every day after that one because I probably should have let the arrow fly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing though. Like if you don't feel good about a shot, it's probably best not to take.
That's my reassurance is, you know, I'm much happier watching that buck walk away totally unharmed than gut shooting it in the butt, hitting it and just giving it a big slice across its back or injuring that. Like, that's the respect of the animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
That goes back to fish. That's why I don't keep fish, because I don't eat fish. I'll catch them and I'll release them, and I'm only going to shoot a deer if I have a plan for it.
Right.
I'm not just going to shoot because it's fun. Sure, it's fun to shoot, you know, whatever, but I'm not going to go out and shoot a doe and shoot a buck and then have 5 freezers full of meat, because I'm not going to eat all of that. Sure, I can find people to give it away to, but I also want to respect the animal. And if it's a big buck like that, that's a memorable buck, I don't want to place a bad shot on, because I'm going to injure it. It might die down the road and it might suffer until its death. I might gut shot it and ruin the meat or some of it anyways. But the big thing of it too is, if you take that shot, there's a chance you'll never see that buck again, because now it's not safe. It doesn't feel safe walking through, you know, you're coming into their living room trying to hide and kill them.
Yeah. So
you don't want to take a shot and graze it or completely miss. Then it's like, well, something's not right about here. And then you just blew out your whole hunting area.
Exactly. Yeah. Damn. So is bow hunting your preferred method?
I guess I'm indifferent. I love bow hunting, just because of the closeness.
Yeah.
You have to be right up close and personal. Like, you're not shooting much more than 50 yards.
Yeah.
And you have to be perfect. Everything about bow, if you shoot a deer bow hunting, you did everything perfect that day. You sat in the perfect stand. You played the perfect wind. You saw the deer come in. You perfectly grabbed your bow. You perfectly knocked your arrow. You perfectly drew it, and you fired a perfect shot to kill that deer. There's no with a rifle. We're in, you know, kind of big country up here. I can shoot a buck at 400 yards with a 7mm. And that buck never knew I was there. I'm in granddad's flannel. I just farted. I'm smoking a cigarette, kind of thing. Like, they're so far away. They're not picking up any of their senses, because they're across a valley.
Right.
And you just get a long flat shot with a rifle. You dump them. They don't even know where you are. Where I feel like, I think it's great. I think the timing's great that New York has a bow season before the regular, so you can pattern those deer and literally get right on top of them. But I also think that for your most average Joe, it's nice to have a rifle and a shotgun season to follow that. So obviously you can shoot them with a gun at a distance, for those that you don't want to be that extremely up close and personal with them. Some people aren't comfortable with that. They kind of get scared because it's an animal in the woods that's near them.
Right. See, I feel like you definitely have to be more of a sportsman to be a bow hunter. And, you know, it's crazy to see that some people will go out elk hunting and moose hunting and bear hunting with a bow. Hell, I've even seen people dove hunt with a bow, and that's, just the amount of skill that you have to have.
That's incredible.
It's insane. I saw it actually at Cabela's in Buda, Texas, when they first opened. They had right by their Mojo stand and all that.
I remember that, yeah.
And, dude, they had a video of people bow hunting dove, and I'm like, what the hell is going on?
That's crazy.
Like, you just have to be amazing. It's a craft, and you have to be good at it to be successful.
Yeah, you learn to be, I guess bow hunting versus gun hunting. I've learned a lot more about the deer woods bow hunting than I have gun hunting.
Oh, for sure.
It forces you to be quiet. It forces you to take the perfect route and play the wind, because you're try to walk through your living room, but someone's standing in the corner. How hidden do they have to be for you not to see them when you're walking through your living room every single day, kind of thing? So you have to be pretty good to go into their house and not get caught.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's a great way of putting it.
Archery. So, I kind of got into archery for the same reason I got into fly fishing. It's just to open up like more opportunities. Because at least here in Texas, I feel like the vast majority of people going to the field are predominantly using guns versus bows. And like Russell was saying, like, I love hunting, but I'm not experienced. And a lot of that's just because of access. Like, Texas is 98% privately owned. So unless you got money or you know somebody with some land who's willing to let you go hunt, opportunities here are pretty limited. But there are public lands available, and a lot of those public lands are archery only, which is nice. So that's one of the reasons why I got into it. And actually, I shot a bow for the first time this weekend, in I don't know, 2 years maybe, just to try and like get back into it. I'm super rusty, but I forgot how much fun it is just to fling some arrows. Yeah,
it's awesome.
It is, man. So this year I'm going to try and do some public land hunting, and I don't think I'm going to be successful because public land is a whole different game. Like,
yeah.
So I know it's going to take a lot of time to learn, and that's okay. I'm not expecting to be successful. I just want to get out there, learn, and I really want to try and just get a hog with a bow. I've never shot a hog with a bow, and then just go from there. And I like to cook too, so I'm looking forward to try and
awesome.
experiment with that too. So we'll see how it goes, man. I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be a long road.
Good luck. We don't have hogs up here, and that's been an interest of mine. I want to try. We have some family down in Florida. I want to try shooting them, but hog is one of those that seems like fun.
Yeah. I saw a massive hog here in Arkansas the other day, and that's the first one that I've seen since I've lived here, and I'd say it was probably pushing 200 pounds. This is a good size hog right off the side of the highway. I was like, damn.
Wow.
But yeah, I haven't been hog hunting. And granted, the last time I went hog hunt was modern gun, was with the rifle, which, I mean, there's no seasons in Texas. I don't know if there is anywhere else, but in Texas, there's no season for it. As long as you have a valid hunting license, you can hunt them. Doesn't matter if it's day or night or anything like that.
No bag limits. A wild boar or wild hogs are just like fair game because they're just such a nuisance.
Yeah.
So
I've seen some pretty creative ways. We'll use the word creative ways to harvest them.
Does it involve a 2-part chemical?
I've seen it. I've seen them with a 2-part chemical.
What about a helicopter?
I've seen a helicopter. I've seen a mounted gun on top of like a UTV. I've seen them out of a pickup. I've seen like obviously just the bait traps, and then just like the cattle panel traps that they drop at a feed zone.
Yeah,
that's I'm just crazy. Like I can't imagine just an AR out of a freaking helicopter.
Dude, right. And I kind of like I'm on the fence because like it sounds cool. And it's taking care of essentially an ecological disaster. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know how I really feel about that from like an ethical standpoint. It's like,
yeah, I agree with that. I'm a pretty ethical person. Yeah.
But I feel the exact same way.
But it is efficient. You can just, it's supposed to go out there like one arrow at a time when you can just chase them down with an AR, a couple mags, and the helicopter, and take a bunch out that way. So,
see, I feel like if there was like it was a team effort. So, say there's an aerial attack, right? Say you're in a helicopter with an AR and you're going and mowing them down, and then there's another team on the ground going and harvesting them. That meat can go you could have a big cookout, you could donate it. Like, there's so many things that you could do. Because I'm just being honest. It would be awesome to be hunting from a helicopter. I would love to do it.
Like it really would. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I wouldn't do that if the opportunity came up. I would just probably sit there afterwards like, I don't really know how I feel, but I'm definitely not going to say no.
Right. But if you can make it a team effort and have a team to go harvest the meat, I think it'd be amazing. Yeah. Didn't you know somebody that did a helicopter hunt back in?
I did. I almost had the chance too. So I won't name the ranch, but I used to work on this ranch one summer doing some stuff out there, and they were trying to, as far as I understand, they were trying to maintain this ranch as natural and native as possible. And so there were 2 exotics out there, nilgai, which is a species of antelope, really great meat, awesome looking animal, but it is non-native. And there was a bunch of hogs, and they're trying to take care of the hog problem. So they did have some people in helicopters go out there at one point and try and get rid of them. And I think they would do the same for nilgai, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so this intern at the same year that I was working, he got the chance to go and do it, and he had a YouTube video actually. I don't know if it's still up or not, but he had a YouTube video of that going down. It looked insane. And then the guy, my boss, who set all up, he told us, the other interns, like there might be more. There might be more opportunities in the future for you guys to come and do it. And unfortunately, it never happened that way. But we were allowed to have a rifle with us, firearms with us, just because it was a massive ranch. They were having some issues with with like trespassers and stuff like that. So they're just like keep yourselves armed or whatever if you're comfortable and all that stuff. So we did. I think they since tightened up the regulations on that. But they also we had a rifle. They're like, yeah, if you see some pigs, shoot them because they want them off the ranch essentially. So there were some times that we sit like a little water trough or something, and in the evenings after the work was done and try and get some, and we'd like take the back straps and stuff like that and go back to the ranch house, cook them up. But yeah, man, I never got the chance to do it. I think, like I said, like from an ethical standpoint, I think I would have trouble doing it. But for research purposes, I think I would engage in.
It is a field study.
You got to do the field study.
And one of the guys, he went on vacation to Hawaii, and he's like, I don't really know what to do in Hawaii. Like, obviously, yeah, you want to go like lay on the beach and drink the drinks and just. It's Hawaii kind of thing, but he's like, I want to do something. He's not like a surfer. He's not anything like that. And he's like, well, they land and they're at this resort, and he's asking people like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, well, we're going to go like fishing out in the ocean. And this person's like, I'm going to take like surfing instructions and then try to surf in the ocean. And this person's going to go eat some exotic food that's on the islands and whatever. And he's like, so like the second day, him and his wife and his two daughters were just roaming around. I think they were in like Honolulu, and they're just roaming around. And he's like, oh, he needed something. And there's like this little like kind of half gift shop, gas station kind of place. And he walked in. Well, they had like a pegboard with local businesses on it. You know, if you need this, call this person kind of thing. And he's like, I ran into the bathroom quick, and I come out and my daughter's holding this flyer. And he's like, what is this? And she's like, Dad, I think you'd like this. And he goes, what the heck is it? And he looks at it, and it's a dog and knife hunt for wild boar. And he goes, he's like, this sounds expensive. So he's like, what? Let's try it. Let's see what it is. So he calls a number. It's like a little pull tab. He calls a number. And guy's like, well, we got a crew. We're looking for 2 more people. If you or anyone else want to go tomorrow, be at this address at like 4 a.m. and we're gonna go do a dog and knife hunt. He goes, what do I need? They're like, bring good boots, good pants, good shirt, but you're gonna be in the wilderness. They supply everything. So he's like, okay, sure. So it was like, I don't know, $1,100, $1,200, whatever, to go do this. And he shows up, and it's like these like one guy that's running it, and then a couple like more native Hawaiian guys that are like helping out. And he's like, this one guy pulls up with this like pickup, long bed pickup, and it's got like 8 dogs on it. So how these dogs work, and running dogs is it's not very common up north. So like, we're not used to seeing this.
Yeah.
They run dogs through like the jungle of Hawaii, and you're running through like the stuff you don't see on TV. And it's like all this crazy stuff. And you have dogs that chase and dogs that hold. So you have these dogs that chase these hogs and kind of get them into like a corner. And then you have more aggressive dogs that like hold them in place. Then they have this GPS tracker. And then you have like a 12-inch Bowie knife, and that's what you kill the hogs with. So they would chase these hogs through the jungle, get them pinned in whatever spot. And he's like, they pointed at these people that were like right up front. They paid. They're all good to go. And then they point at, his name's Dave. They point at Dave, and they're like, okay, dude, it's your turn. He goes, all right. And they let the hogs out. They move locations to this new spot, and these dogs go off. And you can hear them barking, and then the barks kind of drift, and they're running away. And he's like, we're kind of like a fast pace down this hall. And the guy's looking at like this tablet that shows the dog's location. And all of a sudden, all the dots that show the dogs stop. And he goes, we need to move. So they all start running, because once they stop, they have something pinned. And he's like, we're running. And all of a sudden, backed up against this like tractor with like a harvester on the back is this feral hog. And there's like 6 dogs, got it cornered, and it's like half chewed on. He goes, what do I do? And they said, kind of jump on it, cut its throat, graphic, whatever. You harvest it. Well, they did that. He's like, it's kind of there expiring. And he's like, we all look up. We're all out of breath. We've been running. You ran down kind of like half a cliff to get down into here.
See, that's something that I've never done.
I think I would like to give that a go, though, honestly. I wouldn't be
There's a lot of people in the South that do it. There's a lot of people in Arkansas that do it. But I know a lot of people in Texas do it.
I've seen videos on YouTube. That's stuff looks like a freaking rodeo, man. It's crazy.
It does. So Dog, I almost had a chance to get my dog into a dog hog hunting run. I had some friends back home in Texas that ran dogs, and I had a Catahoula, half pit bull, half Catahoula dog, and he was an amazing dog. And there was one time when I went out with one of my buddies, Dalen, and we had trapped some hogs. And Dog, he was a calm, playful, kind of fed off my energy dog. He was awesome, but I took him by that trapped hog, and I think there's 2 or 3 hogs in the trap, and one was a little piglet, and then there was a sow, and then I think there was a little bit a bigger piglet, and Dog comes walking by, and his hair stood up, and he starts like snarling, and I was like, I've never seen that side of my dog before. And my buddy's like, hey man, you want to run him with some dogs? And I was like, I just couldn't do it. He was my buddy, he's my companion dog. He's my bird dog, but he was, my companion dog, and I didn't want to see him get hurt, but he probably would have been a really good hog dog. It was just in his blood.
That Catahoula.
Yep. And then, him being pit bull and having that big blockhead and stuff would have helped him too, but I couldn't do it to him. So I had a chance.
Because some of those dogs get messed up, man. I've seen like the dudes who are really hardcore into it. They have like almost like a Kevlar vest for them. They have like this thing that goes around the neck to help protect them from the tusks and stuff. But dude, those hogs they've killed dogs before. Especially the big boars. Like they don't mess around.
Yeah, they were. Well, I've heard from people that do run dogs is you don't think of it as a pet, you have to think of it as a tool.
Yeah,
it's they're not your pet dog, it's your tool to harvest other animals. And
exactly.
I'm too much of an empath to allow that.
Yeah,
same. Beautiful golden retrievers that are, if they catch a fly in the air is graphic for them.
Retrievers are the
my
best.
dog was he was a good dog. He did his purpose as being my companion. He was a good bird dog. In fact, one year he actually I think we were in public lands over in Seguin, maybe. I think I was with Jose, and we went dove hunting. My dog actually got a bird before I did. And I was like, this is some bullshit. I was like, my dog doesn't have a rifle or opposable thumbs, and he's harvesting a bird before I did. But it was a bird that somebody else had shot. I think it was the same trip that we got peppered. But somebody else had shot a bird, and my dog would stay there right next to me, and he would wait for me to take my shot, and he would retrieve a bird. And he just took off behind me. I was like, what the hell's going on? I turn around, and I look, and I see this dove just flying out of the brush, and Dog just jumped in the air and grabbed it and brought it back to me. And I was just like, my dog just got a bird before I did. And I didn't even shoot the bird. Like, what the hell? So he was a good dog. But
that's hilarious.
That was an interesting trip. We got peppered by, I don't even remember who it was, but I remember we were pissed off because they were shooting low birds like directly at us.
Dude,
it was ridiculous.
Public lands during dove season in Texas is it can be quite the experience. I almost got peppered. I don't even know how many times, dude. It's kind of scary. I was sitting in front of this tree, and I just hear a shot, and I hear the just like pellets just smacking the bark and the tree around. I was like, oh shit! And dude, it happened twice. I was like, no, I'm done. So like, I walked out. I was like waving my arms, just nobody could shoot me. I left, man. I won't get shot for no dove. Forget that.
Yeah, I got peppered. I got peppered turkey hunting up here on private land.
Oh,
really?
And I was I had sole rights to it. And I wasn't too happy that morning. I bet. It's kind of a hill. Well, it's kind of a dome. The field is kind of in the shape of a dome. And the guy was on the other side. I was on this side. So no matter how you walked in, you would have never saw each other. Yeah. He was trespassing on the other side, sitting on a bucket. I come in this side. Well, I start calling. He responds to my call because he thinks I'm a turkey. I think he's a turkey. Neither one of us are turkeys that are moving. All of a sudden, here comes the real turkeys from my left, his right, and they're coming in. They hit the top of that hill, and they're playing who's going to call us in better? Whose decoys look better game? And I don't know. It must be he was better than I was because they started going to him. And I'm like, I'm thinking that one hen hasn't freaking moved all morning. She's just calling him right over. I'm like, I'm just bad at this. And I hear boom, boom. And next thing, like you guys said, is just slapping the tree around me, and like leaves and stuff are getting, I'm like ducking and hiding and like, what the hell? And I'm like now I'm steaming running across this field. Like, who the F is here? Like,
Right.
6 o'clock in the morning, the sun just come up, and I'm marching across the field. The guy didn't even hit the turkey with the 2 shots that he shot. He missed both. He's like, well, they were like 20 yards. I mean, you can't hit a turkey at 20 yards, you friggin' idiot.
Dude, that's freaking terrifying, man. At least like for the dove thing, like I saw the dude, you're there thinking you're by yourself and you almost get shot. That's crazy.
Yeah, what I thought was a turkey started shooting at me, man. They're arming the forest here in New York.
Yeah, they're evolving quick.
These turkeys are pissed.
What was the Second Amendment? I have the right to arm bears.
Those turkeys were at the same sale at Gander Mountain that you were.
Yeah, must be.
Some shotguns.
I was watching some YouTube earlier today. Like there were these guys who were elk hunting and they were bugling and stuff. I got to think. I was like, man, I wonder how often, like in the mountains, they bugle and then they hear a response. It's another hunter bugling too, or like same for turkeys. Like it's got to happen more than we think. Like,
for sure.
It's just crazy. I never thought about it. I was like, that would suck. Like you're hiking like 5 miles in, you're bugling, thinking you found an elk, and then you walk in there, it's another dude in orange.
Cross another hunter. Yeah, that's a dream hunt of mine. Is go to like the Rockies for elk, whether Utah, Colorado, even like Wyoming, Nevada. I'd never draw a tag for that, but
yeah. Dude,
I put in for them all the time, and I mean,
yeah. You got another 50 years.
Yeah. I've never put in for an out-of-state tag. I had a friend; he got drawn for a mule deer doe, I think, in Montana. He did that, and he fell in, like he went on that one trip, and he fell in love with Montana and moved there like a year or two after, and so he's there now currently. Still, I don't know if he's gotten his elk yet. But he has gotten, I think he got a buck not too long ago. And then, yeah, man, I do want to start doing some Western style hunts, like public land, spawn stock, the whole 9.
Right.
I think I really want to start with like a pronghorn and then maybe kind of work my way up like mule deer and then elk, because I don't know what I'm doing. And the thought of like if somehow everything comes together and I'm able to get an elk, how the hell am I going to get hundreds of pounds worth of meat?
A 1,000-pound animal, you got to get that down the hill.
Dude.
Right.
Yeah, man, it's like logistically, it just seems like a freaking nightmare. Like I got drawn for it was, I think, one of the first years that they were here in Texas. They were opening a wildlife management area up for hunting. And they had an archery no-guy hunt that you could apply for. And I got drawn for it. And I was going to do it, but then I started thinking about it. I was like, dude, I no-guy's a big-ass animal. Like, if I even manage to get lucky enough to get one, how am I going to do this? Because no one else like I knew, like at that point in time, really, at least like where I was, like the hunt stuff. I was like, dude, this is going to be a freaking nightmare. And so I was like, I think I'm going to sit this one out. So I didn't do it. I wish I would have, just to get the experience. But I was also in grad school working my master's at the time. So I just didn't have the time to like go and scout and, all that other stuff.
Right.
So, but I think next year I'm going to apply for that one. But yeah, dude, I need to start applying for those out of state hunts. Just
I got stuck on a YouTube loop rabbit hole. And it was this guy doing a solo hunt in public land in Colorado for elk. Mm-hmm. And he hiked in on whatever mountain range, and where he set up like it was like basically a bivvy in the woods. And he said it was like 8 miles in from where he parked his truck.
Oh my goodness.
And that's where he set up. And then he was planning on hiking 6 one way tomorrow and then 6 back to his camp. So he's hiking I'm going to follow this ridge line 6 miles. Once I hit 6 miles, I'm going to turn around and walk back. By then it should be evening kind of plan. And he did that, and he got to his 6 mile mark. It was this like 3rd or 4th day. He got to his 6 mile mark and he was glassing, and he saw this big, beautiful bull that was probably another like 2 miles away on an opposite ridge. So he decided to chase it. And when he saw it, it was like 11 a.m. And he hustled down like the hill through the woods, to grandmother's house he's going. And he crossed over this creek and stream, and he's going back up the other side. And finally, he's bow hunting. Finally, he hears a bugle, and he's calling back. He's got, the cow screams and whatnot. And finally, the kind of the issue he has is the sun is setting, and his camp is like now 10 miles behind him, kind of thing. And the sun is coming down. Like, he's got like a headlamp and like basically a couple ration type foods and like an emergency sleeping stuff in his pack. And the next thing you see is his like, I don't know if it's a GoPro or whatever, Tacticam on his bow. That was your view. And he's looking around this bush, and he's at full draw, and you can hear him like, meow, meow. And it just steps out, thunk, he hits it. And I'm like, I understand the opportunity you were given, but you just set yourself up for the longest night of your life. So he tracks it, and it ran obviously complete opposite way of his camp, and it died probably another 200 yards down. And he's looking, and he's like, it's about 6:30 in the evening. He's like, I only got a max of like 3 hours of sunlight left. And I got a 10-mile hike back to my camp, and I'm in grizzly bear territory with a dead animal in my hands. Like, this is adding up for a perfect night out. So he capes it, and he quarters it, and there was a stream, and his approach was actually really smart. There was a stream that was probably 200 yards away, and he had game bags with him to haul it out. And there are these like breathable fabric. You can put meat in them, tie it, and he was setting them in the water of the stream to reduce the scent so the grizzlies couldn't find it. Yeah. So he quartered it, would run it to the stream, and then he had his pack. He'd pack out one piece at a time, and he did that for like the next day and a half. And I'm like, dude. And then finally he got done. He got back to his camp, and he was like storing them in this like, I don't even know how to, it was like a bag that he was hanging out of a tree, and he would just do it all night long. And it was like half of the next day. And he goes, I need to get this on ice before my meat goes bad. So then he's like, how am I going to get it 6 miles from here back to my truck where my Yeti cooler is? So he did. And he only lost some of it. He was very ethical of the whole thing. And he's like really trying to figure out, how can I hike this like 10 miles plus 6, like 16 miles back to my truck without it going bad. There's no real good way to do that by yourself. Yeah. So he lost maybe 60 pounds of the meat just from spoilage, but he's like, that was an incredible experience that I never want to do again.
Right.
Dude, I mean, like,
that's crazy.
don't get me wrong, like the thought of an elk hunt backcountry, like, sounds freaking awesome. Yeah. But then I don't know how many people actually like really think about the work that comes after if you get lucky.
Right.
Dude, that's a freaking night, especially like in grizzly bear country. Oh my goodness, dude.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you ever heard about I'm sure you have, but the meat eater crew.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah. So there was this, it was called the Meat Tree, I think. It was like a 2-part series. It was a podcast, really, really interesting. So they went to a Fognac Island, and it's one of these like island chains off the coast of Alaska. Mm-hmm. And the Fognac has some of the world's largest elk. They were like brought there for something, and they were just like no. It was just like really good habitat apparently, and they just got huge. So like 1,000+ pound bodied elk, and then of course the bears are also equally as large because now they have a larger food source, and they're food, right? Yeah, and so they're crawling. There's bears everywhere there. So and a Fognac, from the way they described it, like this really thick, nasty place, and they were hunting there. Finally got an elk. They shot it, and they felt like in this really like bad spot. And so they just, I think it was getting late or something too. So they just quartered it. They put them in those meat bags you're talking about, hoisted it up a tree. They were going to go back to camp and just come back there and grab it. So they went there like a day or two later. I forgot how long. They went there. They were on the way to the meat tree, and they started seeing some scat from grizzlies. They're like, huh. And all of these hunters, like, they're all like, well versed, like they're seasoned hunters. They know what's up. So they get to this meat tree, or the quote unquote meat tree, where they have the meat hoisted up, and so they're there. They're trying to get it down and all this stuff, and then they kind of put their packs down and their bear spray and guns down and stuff, and so they're just there hanging out. And next thing you know, they hear like brush rustling, and this grizzly bear broke through their little group of friends, and they're like, I mean, everyone's scattered like from one another. Everyone's away from their guns and stuff. And they're like, holy shit. And so like all these, they just kind of like dive out of the way. And this one dude, I think it was Ryan, maybe, I don't remember, but one of the guys had some hiking poles, and just like out of reaction, just whacked the bear in the face with it as he passed by. And I guess, and I guess the bear was like in shock. Instead of like finding one person, he found a group of people, and maybe he was just like, oh shit, kind of got scared, but he went down. Yeah, so he like he ran away. And then, and everyone like got up and they're checking themselves, like, everybody good? And one of their friends was like, they didn't see him. They didn't hear from him. And one of the guys saw their friend like go with the bear, and they didn't know what happened. So they ran in the direction of the bear, and they found the dude laying there. And so if I recall from the story, the friend like tried to run and he tripped. And as he tripped, the bear passed by. So he like fell onto the bear and like got a little bit of a ride, and eventually fell off like 30 feet from everybody else.
Wow.
But he was okay. Everyone was okay. And they were like, holy shit. And so they just went and grabbed the meat and they took off. But it's like, dude, like when you, on top of like having to take care of an animal, but taking care of an animal where there's another animal that can kill you, it just adds a whole other a whole other layer to the event. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, I remember listening to that, and it was just freaking crazy.
Dude, you should listen to the podcast. It's I think it's a 2-part thing. It's really interesting, man. I think the episodes are called the Meat Tree. It's
yeah, I'm definitely gonna listen to that. That sounds like a great story.
And I'll find it, and I'll put the link in the description too, so that way if you can't find it by then, I'll have it on there. So when the episode comes out,
cool.
Yeah, I may have fudged some of the details. It's been a while, but that's more or less like the gist of it. It's freaking freaking crazy.
That's scary. Like, I'm not afraid of much in the woods, but maybe a grizzly and maybe like a cougar.
Right. Things that'll tear you apart for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So Jose, do you remember John Martin that we went to school with?
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder what kind of stories he has, because he's such an avid hunter. He's always doing elk hunts and big game hunts in different states and stuff. So I wonder if he's experienced anything like that.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, if not nothing like that, I mean, he has a wealth of experience and stories, I would imagine.
Right.
Like, we don't have anything super, like, I would say, like, aggressive and scary here.
You have black bears, right?
Yeah, we have black bears, but they don't usually mess with anything. Like, there's a large camping area where a lot of people go to camp. It's called Old Forge, and you get like your basic weekender campers that they're not roughing it really. They're maybe sleeping in a tent, sure, but it's pretty populated, and nobody knows the proper way to like store food overnight. So I think like the only injuries bear related that I've heard of are like people trying to take the food from the bear and getting attacked, or people trying to mess with a cub and getting attacked.
Sounds like a people problem, not a bear problem.
More or less, it's you putting yourself in the risk, but like you'll see them in the woods and they'll like walk by, and like they're usually pretty docile for the most part. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily try to piss one off, but
were the bears on cocaine?
Yeah, no, they weren't. no, not cocaine. Maybe meth. We have a lot of meth up here, but definitely not cocaine.
Dude, have y'all seen that video of the freaking people that are eating the sandwich with the bear at the picnic table?
Yes, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, what the dude? I mean, of course, we have bears here in Arkansas, but we don't see them very often. And I guess it's so out of the norm for me that I would still be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Dude, I saw one recently. There's like, I guess it looked like they were in a backyard setting. I don't know if they were grilling or what, but there's this big black bear. I mean, he was chunky, dude. And he's just there chilling. And they're like trying to like escort him out of the yard. And so this dude just walks up to the gate, kind of opens it, and the bear just kind of like looks at him. And he took a swipe at him. And the dude had like the nail marks on his side, but I don't think it drew blood. And the bear just walked across the street, started checking out some garbage cans. I was like, man, these people are like, there are some people who are just a little too comfortable around wildlife.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
it was that same campground. I had some friends, and I don't want to say their name, but they had a Snapchat. I got a Snapchat from them of their neighbor. So they were in like a camper, and then it was like a picnic table, and then a little area for like a campfire, and then another camper, and so on and so forth down. Well, they had heard some people talking about a bear, so they kind of went to like snoop around and investigate. Well, there was this kind of the party camper, and you could tell everyone there was pretty heavily intoxicated, and there was a black bear up on a picnic table, and it was one of those like igloo coolers with like the top that slides over and stuff. Uh-huh. And it was trying to figure out how to get into that, because obviously there's something in there that it wanted. And it was like smacking it and moving it and trying to figure out how to open it, and it was about ready to like smash it, and it's chewing on it. Well, it's standing on top of a picnic table. This black bear, it's not very big. It's maybe 200 pounds. It's not a very big black bear. And this drunk bastard comes out of his camper. He's like, what the hell are you doing? And he's yelling at it as if it's like a freaking 12-year-old kid. And he's like, he's standing like as close as we are to our computer monitors, just yelling at it. And finally, with just the palm of his hand, just slaps this thing on the ass. And it's like, get out of here. And the bear looks at him, and like a coward dog just runs into the woods with his cooler. A Yogi Bear. the cooler in his mouth, and turns back and looks at him. It's like, screw you, dude. I'm taking your cooler with me. And runs away. And then it's just all of my half-drunk friends laughing at him. I'm like, wow, that was... thank you.
Ballsy. That is ballsy.
He just slapped it on the butt while it was up on top of that. And the thing just like looks at him, and I'm like... all right, and it just runs into the woods. I'm like, okay, well, good for you, man. You did that. That's a thing you've done now.
That's insane.
Yeah, dude has some stones. There ain't no way in hell I'll be physically touching a bear in the wild.
No, not unless I just harvested it.
I'd be inside the camper with my phone being like recording it, like, yeah, let's see if we can get into it.
Yeah. I didn't really like that cooler anyways.
Even if I did, at that point I don't anymore. Take it.
Well, got an excuse to get a new Yeti.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're bear proof, aren't they?
That's what they say. I don't know.
They say they are. I'd be interested to give them to one of them like grizzlies or brown bears in like the Canadian Rockies. You see how they do that with some nice raw salmon hiding inside.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, I don't think they'd fare very well. But I mean, I want to know how they do their field studies.
Yeah. Did you drop this in a zoo?
He said, They just said bear proof. They didn't say what kind of bear or how big. It could have been like little black bear cubs or something.
Yeah. Here's a 20-pound black bear cub. I wonder if part of it is that like gasket seal they have, if they just can't smell it, so they're not tempted to go into it.
That could be it too.
That probably has a lot to do with it.
If that's probably their thing, but you grease that up with some fresh elk fat on the outside of that, some good smelling stuff. I bet that Yeti's probably not bear proof.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe it is. Maybe they're onto something. Hard to know.
I want to see some field testing.
Hard telling, not knowing.
Right. So I see that we are 2 hours in. So Yikes. We're kind of getting up there in terms of time. I didn't even realize that we were 2 hours in. This is the first time I've looked at the time. But due to our hosting site, we only have a certain amount we can talk about. So it's been great having you on. I really appreciate you hopping on kind of last minute, and it's been a great conversation. And I'm sure I can speak for both of us that you're welcome back anytime. So
all right,
is there anything else you want to talk about before we go ahead and start trying to end it?
I have a question for you, Fred. I don't think you told us. If you did, I may have missed it. What was the name of your doe estrus company?
So it is Daybreak Deer Lures.
Daybreak Deer Lures. I'm about to look that
and
up.
It's do I do a shameless plug?
Absolutely, man.
Daybreakscents.com would be my website.
So you have a website for both Corny Boards and Daybreak?
Yep. Cornyboards.net, because someone owns the freaking .com domain. Why, I don't know, but cornyboards.net and daybreaksense.com.
Daybreaksense, cornyboards.net. Awesome, man.
We'll definitely put your both your links in the description, and y'all go check them out. I appreciate you coming on, and it's been a great episode. And as soon as it releases, I'll let you know. And you're more than welcome to share it however you please. And
all right.
We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man, it was great chatting. And anytime you're in Texas or Arkansas, shoot us a message, and maybe we can do some fishing or something.
I would love to go south and just do something that's not north.
See, I'm the opposite. I want to go north and do something that's not south.
Man, what I would do for a freaking small, greater than 12 inches.
Right.
Yeah. If you guys are ever up this way, you got a place to stay, and I can show you around the water and show you around the woods if you want to go hunting.
Hell yeah, we might have to make that happen.
No, I know the state pretty well. I know the waters. I'm not an Elite Series pro, but I've caught fish.
It sounds like you do pretty good for
better
yourself,
than both
man.
of us.
I can probably put you on fish.
Well, we might have to make that happen sometime soon.
All right. I'm game for that. But I'm more than grateful for you guys having me on. Thank you for letting me talk your ear off for 2 hours here.
Hey, we've enjoyed it. It's been great.
Yeah, man, that was a good time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was fun.
Not a problem. And for the listeners, thank y'all for listening to the end. And y'all have a good one, and we'll catch y'all next time.
This has been Wildlife Outdoors. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook at Wildlife Outdoors and on Instagram at wild.life.outdoors. Let's go live life on the wild side.